I'm Ellen McCluskey, and this is my Understanding My Community South Central Kansas Special Education Cooperative presentation. For customs and traditions, I'm going to focus, we serve 15 different districts within our interlocal, and so I'm going to focus solely on our cooperative because I am employed by the cooperative as an IEP specialist, and I'm no longer a teacher in one single district, but I serve all 15 districts. So as far as customs and traditions go, they're mostly district-driven activities and schedules, so our teachers are all encouraged to participate in those. But as far as SCK-SCC goes, we have new teacher academy at the beginning of the year. We also have mentor-mentee meetings that go in line with that. New teacher academy is 2 days. Then we meet with our mentor-mentees at least once a month. We have pre-service and fall-in service training for just all staff. Those are the only times that we have all of our staff all together in the same place. We have Jobathon where the students are able to come in and compete against each other with job skills, and they get to kind of link with different community supports and potential job opportunities. We have Advocacy Day where the kids are able to go into a local community college and figure out how to access the student services and supports. We have had a holiday meal where our life skills students create a meal for the holidays that people are able to come in and eat. It's since turned into a chili cook-off. We've had the CBT para picnic at the end of the year where our paras who are participating in that community-based training with students come in for a big picnic at the end of the year. And then there's also holiday meals with individual groups. So for example, our OTs and PTs will go out to eat together, our office staff will go out to eat together, and so on and so forth. For population characteristics, SCK-SCC began on July 1st, 1971. We serve 15 different districts. Those 15 districts are within 7 different counties. We serve all eligible students ages 3 through 21. So any student who is eligible for special education within these 15 districts, gifted included, we are serving them. We currently have 1,472 students. 538 of them are female, 934 are male. And of these total students, 1,387 of these students are white, so we have very little diversity within our 15 different districts that we do serve, but we have at least one student in all of the race categories that WebKids recognizes. We have one behavior day school, so our behavior day schools are set aside for our students with the most significant behavioral and emotional needs, and so we currently have 15 students in this setting. We have one PBIS classroom, so a positive behavior intervention supports classroom, and so this is typically for our younger students. We currently have 4 students in this setting, but it's a special education classroom that focuses on behavior and behavior modification within a general education public building. And we have 2 functional life skills classrooms where the students are being taught daily living skills. We currently have 3 students in this setting, and we employ about 400 teachers, paras, and itinerant staff. As far as communication channels go, we most frequently use emails. Some people will call over to the office if they're needing things from time to time. We have Google Drive, specifically Google Docs. We do have a Facebook page that's used every once in a while, but I think it could be used more. We have our SCK-SCC website. It also connects to a calendar on the front page that connects to a greater professional development Google Calendar, so you can always see what's going on within the cooperative. And we don't really have a wide range of community and public communication. I would say that social media is probably the easiest way for us to branch that. As far as community groups go, we don't have any groups that meet regularly between the community and SCK-SCC, but we do have an assistive technology team within the interlocal. We have an MST team, a PDC committee, and telemedicine. And then we also work with outside agencies within the 7 different counties. So we work with Arrowhead West, Pillar, Horizons Mental Health, Southwest Developmental Services, Priett's, Sunflower Early Education Center. For leadership, we have our district boards of education and our district administration, and then we have our SCK-SCC Board of Education and our SCK-SCC administration. The local boards of education, our district boards of education, go in and they elect one member to then serve on the SCK-SCC board, and then they can relay information about what's going on within the interlocal back to their own boards. We also work within leadership positions with our local businesses for community-based training, so we can put students out in those and the local businesses out in those training positions. We also work with our local businesses for donations and support for events. We have specialist positions, so they're really kind of their leaders in their realms. We have an autism specialist, a transition specialist, a behavior specialist, and so on and so forth. And then we're working on creating an advisory board so that we can have one representative from each of our groups. So one OT, one school psych, along those lines, so that we can come together and meet and discuss things that are going on within the cooperative. And then we also have a superintendent council. For economic conditions, I'm focusing just on the interlocal. So we deal with some of the greater issues with a lack of education funding, which then leads to a lack of special education funding and a lack of local assessment raises, because when the general education buildings are not getting the funding that they're needing, then they are not as likely to pitch in more money or raise their assessments to pitch in more money so that our interlocal can raise salaries, and they're able to shell out more money in more spots and be able to provide supports to students. So it kind of goes back to that that larger issue of funding that we always run into. But this also leads to non-competitive salaries. And then just the constant schooling issue as well leads to an economic condition, because in order to be a special education teacher, you have to have quite a bit of training, and you have to have continued training. And so all of this together leads to quite a bit of turnover. As far as the political structure goes, we just work between our own interlocal and also the district boards of education. And so that's kind of where our political structure ends. So like I said before, there's one representative from each district that's a part of that SCK-SEC board. And really the administration from SCK-SEC answers to the SCK-SEC Board of Education, just like a district administrator would answer to their local Board of Education. As far as social tensions go, we deal with general versus special education quite a bit, district versus SCK-SEC. I think in both of these instances, it's just a lack of communication and kind of misunderstanding about what one or the other does. We also have this parochial versus public education social tension, where we still have an obligation to serve students in parochial schools. But oftentimes the support that we've tried to provide isn't received well, or we have to get a little bit creative on how to provide that support to students. And then we also have the social tension of homeschool or private education versus public education. So we have students who have elected to be homeschooled, but then still want support such as speech, but they want it as an appointment-based only service. So they're not coming to school, but they'll come to the school to be served for speech. And so that's also kind of led to some social tension and just kind of getting creative on providing services. For previous community efforts, we have a superintendent council that meets once a month, and that goes pretty well, but it's pretty low attended. We will have a principal council in the fall. It's something that we used to have, but then that kind of fell by the wayside. We will have an advisory council going into the fall, and that's also something that we could work on too, to create a better kind of community branch between the co-op and the community. We could create that type of advisory council. We've had several districts be interested in functional classrooms, but that hasn't really gone anywhere. We have a new district that say that they want to participate at least once a year, but it just doesn't the conversation just kind of ends by the end of the school year. And then our community events have really kind of been stymied by COVID over the past couple of years. And then our PBIS classroom is something that people worked pretty hard to get, that's been really beneficial for the students we have in that setting. And that will be something that will continue. As far as the power structure goes, we really just work between districts and SCK-SEC. And then there's always that power structure of state funding and guidance, and then federal funding and guidance. And then really we just have that power structure between licensed staff and paras. So our teachers are then responsible for managing the paras that are put out in the districts that they're in. As far as multicultural issues go, again, we're not a very diverse, even though we stretch across 7 counties and 15 different districts, we're not very diverse, but this piece is really district driven on what each individual district does for multicultural issues. I know on our end, We often have difficulties in finding interpreters. We also have difficulties in sometimes finding specific languages that we're needing in order to translate our paperwork. But aside from that, I think it's something that we could really grow in and provide more information on. It's just that this time it's not being done. As far as public opinion goes, we always kind of ride on what the teacher's perspective is, what the district administration perspective is, just on how well things are going within the cooperative. Our assistant directors and our administration are really active within the districts, and so they're visiting once or twice a week to each of the 15 districts. I think that we could put out brochures. I think that we could create more publicity through social media, and I think we could create more partnerships with the community and create community advisory boards. As far as the statements go, these are my different statements for PLO 5 correlation, my relevancy statement, and my personal reflection. And then these are the references I used. Thanks for watching.